Some say a nation's destiny is written on the sea. For 250 years, the story of the United States has been inextricably tied to the men, women, and ships of its Navy. From the cobbled-together fleet of the Continental Congress, with heroes like John Paul Jones refusing to surrender, to the mighty nuclear-powered aircraft carriers of today, the U.S. Navy has been the shield that has guarded our shores and projected American power across the globe. In this special episode of Talk with History, we're setting a course through a small part of our Navy history, and we're going to talk about the top 5 Navy moments, top 5 Navy movies, and top 5 Navy entertainment characters that highlight our history. Join us as we celebrate the ships, sailors, and pop culture that have helped define 250 years of the greatest Navy in the world. Welcome to Talk with History. I'm your host, Scott, here with my wife and historian, Jenn.
Hello.
On this podcast, we give you insights to our history-inspired world travels, YouTube channel journey, and examine history through deeper conversations with the curious, the explorers, and the history lovers out there. And Jenn, before we get into our main topic, we actually have a 5-star podcast review to read on the show. So I want to say thank you to Picola Blues, and that Picola is in reference to Pensacola. Mm-hmm. So that's 5 stars. This was just a couple days ago. What a great podcast. First off, would like to thank you both for your amazing service to our country. I found y'all on Instagram and found the podcast not long ago, but have listened to almost all of them as I've done a couple of long road trips. Interesting topics and great guests. Keep on walking and talking. P.S. We need some Pensacola history. So we've actually talked about that. I think we talked to JD about going down to the museum. The aviation museum down there. Trying to get him in there. So so thank you to Picola Blues for leaving a 5-star review. So if you're another listener out there and you're listening to this episode and you want your review read on the podcast, drop us 5 stars, write us a little note, and we'll read it on the show. All right, Jenn. So we kind of started doing this on the way to the Navy Ball.
Yeah.
So we were driving to the Navy Ball, all dressed up, looking good, looking
Happy
fine.
birthday, U.S. Navy.
Happy birthday, U.S. Navy. Yes, 250 years. We are a year older than the country itself.
Yep.
And so we were driving to downtown Memphis for the Millington area, the Memphis area Navy Ball. 250 years, 650 people showed up. We were all dressed up. You were wearing your tiara, uniform tiara. I'll show a picture of it for those watching the video. And as we were driving, I just thought, okay, in the history of the United States Navy in 250 years, what are some of the top 5 moments? And you and I kind of just started spitballing ideas. And then I was like, well, what about movies? What are the top 5 movies? And that one went a lot faster. And then we eventually settled on characters. And we're like, this would be a great podcast. So
yes,
we decided to make this into a podcast.
So the Navy, October 13th, 1775, as the Continental Navy, basically they started the Navy with building 2 ships. So the United States realized if we're going to be a country and go for dominance against the world's greatest Navy, we should probably have something to meet them. And even though there's a lot of merchant ships from America or the colony of America, there weren't any battleships from the colony of America. So they had put aside funds from Congress to build these 2 ships, and that is the birth of the United States Navy.
So the United States turns 250 next year as we are recording this, but the Navy has just recently turned 250. So happy birthday, Navy. And we're going to talk about some of the top 5 moments. And I came up with these moments. You're going to kind of tell me if I missed anything.
Okay. So we know number 1.
We know number 1, birth of the Navy.
Birth of the Navy.
Birth of the Navy.
That's a moment.
And actually, so I looked it up, and there was something else in here that I thought we could put in with, that kind of went with the birth of the Navy. So the birth of the Navy and the 6 frigates. So this is 1775 and 1794. So these 2 dates, these 2 years cover the birth of the Navy and then the crucial Naval Act of 1794. So this Naval Act created the permanent Navy and authorized the construction of the 6 original frigates: the Constitution, the Constellation, the Chesapeake, the Congress, the United States, and the President. So these are all the USS. These powerful ships, particularly the USS Constitution, established the U.S. as a credible maritime power in the world's oceans, fighting the Quasi-War and the Barbary Wars, and then winning crucial early victories in the War of 1812. So that's, I think that, I felt like that went hand in hand with the birth of the Navy.
Yeah. So then America was kind of like, we won the war. We don't need a Navy anymore. So they disbanded the Navy. And then when they started to have affairs with the Merchant Marines being attacked by the Barbary pirates, they were like, we probably need to relaunch a Navy.
Yeah.
So if you ever see service flags, and they're supposed to be in order of the services, the Marine Corps flag will be before the Navy flag. And people are always like, why is the Marine Corps flag before the Navy flag, even though the Navy is technically older, with technically 1 month older? It's because we had a break in service. The Marine Corps did not. And so they consider them the oldest continuous service, and then we have to line up behind them. Whatever, let the Marines have it.
Yeah, Marines are part of the Department of the Navy anyways, and they hate it when you say that. So moving on from that, right, talking about the War of 1812, went right into don't give up the ship. So don't give up the ship, Battle of Lake Erie. To me, like, this is the next moment in Navy history. And I called this one out because, not because the Battle of Lake Erie was like this monumental thing. It was, but it gave the flag that now hangs in my alma mater at the Naval Academy. And so this don't give up the ship, this was actually said by Captain James Lawrence as his dying command during a naval battle in the War of 1812. Now, he was the commander of the USS Chesapeake, one of those battleships we named earlier.
Yes.
When it engaged in battle with HMS Shannon on June 1st, 1813. So his last words became a rallying cry for the Navy. And then Oliver Hazard Perry, who was his friend, took up that battle cry and made that flag. And that original flag is still at the Naval Academy.
And we have an entire episode on this, because did Oliver Hazard Perry actually give up the ship? Because he launched in the Battle of Lake Erie on the Lawrence, on the ship named for his friend. And the Lawrence got hit and faltered, and he had to move to the Niagara. And from the Niagara, he defended and able to win. We have met the enemy and they are ours. This is kind of like the famous things he says. But he technically gave up the ship. He takes down that flag. He takes the flag with him to the other ship, puts the flag up. So that has become synonymous with the Navy, meaning don't give up the fight.
Yeah, keep going.
That's the actual ship. The original is at the Naval Academy, and we have seen it. It's not the one in the hall. What is that hall called?
Bancroft Hall.
It's not in Bancroft Hall. I think it's Heroes Hall, where all the people who have passed serving their country are listed in Heroes Hall. That's a replica because it's on display and it's hit by the sun and it has it's there to be looked at. The original was made in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to the show for a while, we actually lived in Erie for a few years.
And women quilted it. So it's like these wool blankets that they quilted, and it's falling apart. So they have it protected under no light, and so you can actually see it. Bear in mind, if you ever see Don't Give Up the Ship, we have the flag right here behind us. There's no apostrophe in don't.
That's right.
But you forgot the biggie, John Paul Jones.
Yeah, John, I had to pick 5, so.
I have not yet begun to fight. That's our birth. So his grave is at the Naval Academy, and we have a video from there as well. The crypt of John Paul Jones it reminds you so much of a sailor crypt.
It's really cool. If you're ever in the Annapolis area, the public can come on to the Naval Academy. You got to go through the screening, so don't bring like a knife in your pocket or anything like that. But you can go into the museum and you can go see the John Paul Jones crypt. It's really cool.
It's really cool. He's Scottish born, Scottish born, but he is famous for the interaction he had with the British Battle of September 23rd, 1779. His ship is taking a lot of fault, is almost faltering. It's taking a lot of cannonball hits. And the British are basically asking for his surrender. And it's looking like you probably should, but instead he says, I have not yet begun to fight. And they actually turn the battle around where they take the British ship. So that has become synonymous with the Navy, and we don't give up, even if we're looking like we're not going to be successful. We don't give up. And so I don't know. John Paul Jones is up there for me.
It's a pretty big part of our naval heritage. All right. So again, fast forwarding. So this is one I was actually thinking of in the car when we were driving to the Navy ball, but I didn't end up saying it, but it's the Battle of Midway.
Oh, yes.
Battle of Midway is a big one. So 1942, the Battle of Midway, June 4th through the 7th. So this was the single most decisive naval battle in U.S. history and a turning point in the war in the Pacific during World War II. So the Navy sunk 4 Japanese aircraft carriers while losing only one of its own. This irreversible loss of Japan's best aircraft carriers shifted the tides of the war to the United States for the rest of World War II. And it really proved the dominance of our aircraft carriers as the primary warship of the future. So the Battle of Midway, I mean, even I studied it in all of my Navy classes that I had to take and all that stuff. And again, not the history guy, but when I was doing my master's through the Naval War College and stuff like that, that is a battle that we study no matter what. And so that's a big one for the Navy.
Yeah, I wrote a whole paper on that.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, that's 1942. So that's right in the middle of the war. And you have to remember, before World War II, we were not a Navy dominance like we are today. America mobilized to become a dominant military force. We were not there aviation-wise. We were not there sea-wise. And the Japanese were there. And so we basically had to mobilize as a country, build battleships, get people to man those ships, and build aircraft and get people to fly them. And by the Midway, where we're meeting the Japanese, as we get better and better at warfare, we end up being the dominant force in the world out of World War II. So there is a lot that we gain there. But I think there's one that, to me, we've covered on this channel.
What's that?
The Battle of the Ironclads.
So that was another one that when I was kind of doing my research that was recommended in like the top 5. There's one other that I have as an honorable mention, but I'll talk about that at the end.
So the Ironclads, we covered that, the Battle of Hampton Roads, March 8th and 9th, 1862. What's so significant about this battle is it's the first time 2 metal ships meet each other. And what's so neat is they basically just float around each other, hitting each other with cannonballs as they bounce off each other for 2 hours, and it becomes a stalemate. But in that moment, both militaries, the Union and the Confederacy, had wooden ships. And you're realizing at this moment, so are navies across the world, that has now become obsolete. Because what these 2 metal ships could do, taking down the wooden ships, and now how they could fight against each other, it really made it so now every ship in the worldwide navies are going to be covered with metal because of what they could do with any kind of cannonball or anything hitting them. Is really, it can bounce off of it until we get into better artillery and things like that nature. But I just really, that battle, because of how it was so close to the shore and people watched it and they were amazed by it. I also like that it was a 2-day battle, that at first it was the CSS Virginia from the Confederacy who had gone out and sunk the Congress and the Cumberland. And they had ran the Minnesota aground and left it there and went home to gather up more ammunition, come back the next morning, March 9th, to meet them and basically finish the job. And then during the night, the Monitor, the USS Monitor, the Union's ironclad, had come down the river and kind of perched out right in front of the Minnesota. So when the Virginia came, it met the ironclad. And I always think that's, I don't know, cool that it defended the Minnesota and wouldn't let it be sunk, and it met them and then it fought. So I kind of like that.
Well, and a couple of the ones that we've named already, aside from the Battle of Midway, but Oliver Hazard Perry and John Paul Jones, I mean, that's like Navy culture.
Yeah.
That was a moment that literally changed navies throughout the globe. Mm-hmm. It changed the design for forever. Wooden ships after that point were essentially going to become obsolete. Yeah. So that was a pivotal moment in Navy history. So moving forward here, had to pick another one. So 1954 and the rise of nuclear power, the USS Nautilus was commissioned. So this, I mean, think about this. The commissioning of the USS Nautilus, SSN 571, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, launched the nuclear age for naval warfare and was a monumental engineering achievement spearheaded by Admiral Hyman G. Rickover. If you're Navy or Navy adjacent, you will know the name Rickover. Nuclear propulsion gave submarines unprecedented speed, endurance, and range, allowing them to operate submerged indefinitely. This technological leap fundamentally changed the Navy's capabilities and was central to the United States Cold War strategy. And if you think about it, again, another pivotal moment in history. A nuclear-powered submarine. That was the next era that I think we still live in of nuclear dominance, submarine power. That is true power projection there. Aside from one thing that I didn't put on here was like the first aircraft carrier. But the advent of nuclear power and a nuclear-powered submarine, you can't argue that piece.
I agree. I'm not a sub person.
Yeah, well, this is an entire Navy podcast, but I know you're probably going to mention something aviation.
The birth of naval aviation. May 8th, 1911. It was born with Navy's first aircraft. So their first aircraft that flew off of a ship back to the shore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, nuclear power, every ship uses it now. And what's the thing we love to say in the Navy that the president asks anytime something big happens in the world? What's the first question?
I think it's two things. Where are my aircraft carriers or where are my submarines?
Yeah. So the Navy is, when it comes to world dominance, it is the Navy because we can get close to any piece of land.
Yep.
And when you talk about international law and international waters, we just operate in those areas. And because as the dominant Navy.
So the fifth, and certainly not least, was 2004. There was a young ensign that checked on board the USS Tarawa and met a salty lieutenant aviator by the name of Lieutenant Jennifer Mitchell. So that is when Ensign Scott Bennie met the salty Lieutenant Jennifer Mitchell. A huge moment in Navy history, right on that ship right there. That's a picture behind us, and the rest is history. And that's why you guys are listening to this podcast today. So I think that was a pretty pivotal moment in Navy history.
I think that's number one.
Yeah. I don't think you were expecting that one.
I wasn't, and I love it.
So honorable mention was one thing that I had actually thought of was the sailing of the Great White Fleet. Because it was early 1900s, pre-World War I.
It was,
Or just after?
I think it was just after.
It was right around World War I. But that was another big one because, again, coming out of the 1800s, Great White Fleet just circumnavigated the globe, showing our American presence all around.
Yeah, no, it was right before World War I, 1907 to 1909. 16 battleships painted white.
Yeah.
Circumnavigated the globe.
So I mean, and that's another one that we all learn a little bit about. And that's another piece, as naval officers that we'll learn about is you do end up an advocate and a representative of your country, especially friends of mine who are ship COs and they're pulling into port and they are the representative, especially if they're by themselves, they are the representative of the United States. There's very different things they have to do. And that was a good example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we all learn about that. And it must have been pretty impressive in 1907 to see that.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. All right. Moving on to the top 5 Navy movies. I know you're going to have strong opinions about this. So first one I put, I think was obvious. And this is probably number 1 is Top Gun.
Top Gun.
First one, right?
Yes.
To me, that's easy. Like I almost don't even have to talk about it.
Change the Navy.
Change the Navy. So many pilots came in because of that movie. It gave so much to the Navy. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on to number 2 because there's not too much we can say about that. And that is 1995, Crimson Tide, where the captains, Gene Hackman and his XO, executive officer, Denzel Washington, clash over a disputed order to launch a nuclear missile. So great movie, 2 phenomenal actors, submarine movie. It was one of the first ones that I could think of when we were thinking top 5 Navy movies.
I like it, but I think I would probably pick Hunt for Red October because I just love that so much more.
That one's, to me, that's U.S. Navy adjacent, right? Jack Ryan, he's not Navy.
He's Marine.
He was a Marine.
But the Navy intercepts them.
The Navy intercepts. So I think that's fair. Those two are right with each other. But if we're talking kind of Navy, I would say Crimson Tide. So number 3 on my list was 1996 Down Periscope, starring Kelsey Grammer, a rebellious Navy officer. Who's given command of a dilapidated World War II era diesel submarine with a misfit crew and is tasked with winning a series of naval war games. I love this movie.
The USS Westolia.
It's so much fun. It's completely crazy, but it just makes me laugh. And it's one of those movies, when you think Navy movies, it just comes to mind.
Well, I like it because it does remind me of Command. It reminds
You're dealing with all these different characters from all over the personalities, like the first female officer in a submarine and all, and he's dealing with that. And obviously nowhere close to accurate in any sense of the word, but it's just a lot of fun.
And I feel like his leadership, Kelsey Grammer does play a really good officer.
He does.
I think his leadership, how he's trying to lead these people and he treats them different, like how he knows they need different motivations. I think it's really good.
And there's always the joke, they're talking about his tattoo. I won't say it on the podcast about what tattoo he has and like where it is, which is, again, another classic Navy thing. So it's just a movie that's a ton of fun. It's pretty family friendly. You can watch it with your kids pretty easily. All right. So the next one on my list was 1954, The Caine Mutiny. Now, I've never seen this, but when I was looking around, I've heard about it all the time. And the Caine Mutiny always comes up when you're talking about Navy movies.
So that's Navy. Because I really like Master and Commander, but that's Royal Navy. So it's not quite the same. But I do love the origins of the U.S. Navy, and a lot of that is found in these old movies. Just we use the same terms, we use the same whistles and piping, which they all did on these old ships.
Yeah.
And so if you want to see a lot of the tradition and heritage, which is a big part of the U.S. Navy, we love our traditions. It comes from the birth of the Royal Navy and the U.S. Navy. So these movies do a really good job of showing that.
Yeah. So the 1954, The Caine Mutiny, it stars Humphrey Bogart, which was his only Oscar-nominated role, which I actually didn't know that. I was kind of surprised by that. And so this is a dramatic and psychological film about a naval court-martial after the crew of a World War II minesweeper mutinies against their erratic and paranoid captain. So it's just by the description of it, it's a lot of acting. And if he's Oscar nominated in it, again, this movie comes up all the time when you're talking kind of top Navy movies. All right. So number 5, again, because I had to pick one, I had to pick A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
So 1992, A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise. I consider that a Navy movie because primary character is Navy and Marine Corps. It's an amazing movie.
I love Few Good Men. Anytime it's on, we'll watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I do love the interaction with him and Demi Moore as the higher ranking officer. And I think Jack Nicholson plays a perfect Marine.
He's so good. And Kiefer Sutherland, he does as well.
They're so good.
They're amazing.
So yeah, I do love A Few Good Men.
So an interesting fact about that movie, I didn't know this. The film's writer was Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. And he actually wrote the original stage play, which the movie is based on cocktail napkins when he was working as a bartender at the Palace Theater on Broadway. So he would write his ideas and dialogue on napkins in between, like during the acts of the musical, and then he'd go home and he'd type it on his typewriter. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I didn't realize Aaron Sorkin had written.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, he wrote it because he was either sitting at happy hour and he was over listening to a conversation, or he knew someone who was a young JAG, just got done with law school and checked into Navy as a young JAG and got a court martial, a general who was getting brought up on murder charges, court-martial. And this young JAG was like, what do they want me to do? They want me to plea it out? And that's really what they wanted.
So that was the spark for it. That was the inspiration for it.
So that was his inspiration. But if you know anything about the U.S. Navy, I tell people this all the time, the Navy considers you a lawyer. The Navy considers you a doctor. If you come in as one, they don't care how much experience you've got. You're going to get the big cases right away. So be ready if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So I did have a couple honorable mentions for top 5 movies. Hunt for Red October. We talked about that. Navy SEALs.
Classic.
Said had to say Navy SEALs. McHale's Navy, another comedy.
Yes.
And then Under Siege.
Wow.
I had to say Under Siege because it's Steven Seagal and he's a Navy SEAL cook.
Yeah.
And then he's on an aircraft carrier and somebody takes over the aircraft carrier and he's like the one guy that is able to fight everybody.
Yes.
And it's like, this is a really bad movie, but I had to say Under Siege.
Yes,
so,
that makes sense.
And obviously, if we have forgotten anything as we were going through this, or you think that we missed something on our top list, please comment below or shoot us an email.
I know that movie Battleship is pretty good. I know that movie with Tom Hanks in it.
Oh, Greyhound. I still haven't watched that. I need to watch that.
But I've heard those two are really good as well.
Yeah. All right. So now we're moving on to our top 5 Navy characters, right? So these are entertainment characters, and some of them may intermingle with some of our top movies. Yeah. Number 1 that I had, Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell.
Of course.
You can't beat Top Gun.
I know.
Like I was going to put like
not fair.
Top Gun 1 and 2 for 1 and 2. Like both of those movies are so good.
And they have like other Iceman, Goose, right? There's just, it's synonymous with these characters.
It's the pinnacle of Navy movies in my opinion. All right. Number 2, Chief Petty Officer Casey Ryback. Under Siege. He's the Navy SEAL. I had to put him on there mostly just because like for when you get Navy characters, and these aren't like totally in order. I didn't really arrange them in order, but I wanted to put 5 of them out there. To me, it's just kind of like, it's the machismo, it's the cheesy Steven Seagal era. I think that was probably like his most popular movie.
Yeah.
Under Siege.
But my favorite, I always say my favorite female who was in the military and depicted in a movie is Ellen Ripley from Alien. And she is in the Interstellar Commerce Commission. She's a merchant marine.
Oh, okay.
And she's in the merchant Navy. Yeah.
Navy adjacent.
Yeah. And so she's considered a lieutenant first class.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. So the next one I got is one you may not have expected. This is from NCIS. Agent Leroy Jethro Gibbs. So he was a Marine.
I like Gibbs.
But he's working for NCIS. I thought that was actually a good one. When I was looking around, I was like, what are some good ideas? I don't want to do totally obvious ones. And I thought Gibbs from NCIS was actually a pretty good one because he plays the steady as a rock lead investigator for NCIS, the TV show, if nobody's ever seen it. But again, very much a Navy show because NCIS is Navy Criminal Investigative Service.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, another Navy character right there.
Well, how about Wonder Woman?
So I did not have Wonder Woman on mine.
So if you know anything about Wonder Woman, you know that her day job is the U.S. Navy. And in the TV show, she is first, I think, a petty officer, OS.
Okay, operations specialist.
And then she becomes a lieutenant commander. It's still in intel. So basically, she's able to see all the intelligence of America and know where she's needed when she switches to Wonder Woman. And
how interesting.
There'll be dolls sold of her with the Navy uniform as well. So I always think it's great that Wonder Woman was in the Navy.
Yep, that's another good one. So number 4 on my list, Lieutenant Daniel Kaffee. Again, from A Few Good Men. I mean, Tom Cruise, he just kills it, right? His character, and that's one of the things that I think they did really well in A Few Good Men was anybody that comes to the Navy, whether you come in straight out of college or you're in the workforce for a few years and you have your degree and then you come in and you become an officer, you were put in charge and you were responsible for a lot more than typically a 22-year-old in the workforce would be. My very first job, I had 45 people working for me and I was 22.
Yeah, that's why I said they consider you a lawyer.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so that's one of the things that I think they did so well with A Few Good Men is showing, one, obviously he was this like brilliant lawyer, but 2, how much he was responsible for. He'd been in the Navy for all of 2 years? Mm-hmm. I think was he a JG or was he a lieutenant?
I think he was a JG.
Yeah.
And he was a lieutenant commander.
She was lieutenant commander. And so that was one thing that I think they showed that was done well. And I don't know if that was intentional, but I think it is somewhat reflective of my experience, of your experience. Mm-hmm. You come in and you're dealing with people issues and life issues. I had sailors that were getting pregnant, getting arrested, and all this crazy stuff that sailors do, you know?
Yep. But I don't see G.I. Jane. So Demi Moore is in A Few Good Men. And Demi Moore, I think, plays a great female naval officer in A Few Good Men. I think she nails it. And then I remember her playing the first female candidate of Navy SEAL training.
I forgot about that.
Lieutenant Jordan O'Neill.
Yeah.
And I went to the movies. I went to see that. And I think it came out in 1997. But I really liked, Demi Moore got in really good shape for this movie. And it really depicts her holding her own in it. And I really did enjoy it. I watched it when it first came out and I liked it. And people still refer to G.I. Jane. What's the problem with G.I. Jane is a GI is not Navy.
Yeah.
She's a Navy officer that they've chosen to go into this training, but the G.I. Jane acronym is an Army acronym. So it confuses you when you hear the movie title. And
yeah, that's a good one. That's one I actually hadn't thought of. And last, but certainly not least, is Popeye the Sailor Man. So his first appearance, and I didn't realize Popeye, the character, was this old. He appeared on January 17th, 1929, as a minor character in a long-running comic strip, thimble theater. So Popeye the Sailor Man, I mean, there's people who get tattoos of Popeye, and we looked it up. He actually is supposed to be a United States Navy sailor. So he's not just some sailor out there doing whatever. He's supposed to be a U.S. Navy sailor.
Yeah, but you missed one.
Who's that?
Magnum PI.
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Magnum. So if you watch Magnum
He's supposed
PI,
to be a SEAL.
yes, in the very first pilot episode, he's intelligence. He's an intelligence officer who's got out of the Navy and stays in Pearl Harbor, stays in Hawaii, becomes a PI. But as the show goes on and it gets better and they want to make him, I think, cooler, he becomes a Navy SEAL. And then they show his like flashbacks to Vietnam and he's a frogman and stuff. And he's wearing the little shorts.
Oh, I don't know how I missed that one. That would he would absolutely end up on this list.
Thomas Magnum is in the U.S.
That's
Navy.
Totally Navy character. So I did have some honorable mentions for top 5 Navy characters. Lieutenant Commander Harmon Rabb Jr. from the TV show Jag.
Yep.
I thought that was a good one. That was a semi-popular show.
It was.
And I had to go back to Down Periscope with Lieutenant Commander Tom Dodge. we talked about him earlier, and I just thought he was just such a fun character.
Yes, and I have to give a little honorable mention to Jack Ryan because he's a Marine, but he worked at the Naval Academy. Yeah. So he taught history. The character of Jack Ryan has a doctorate in history. They changed it to economics for this later version of him, but he's a historian. And they filmed Patriot Games in 1991 at the Academy. Again, we go there on the channel to that gate where he's chased out by the guy and the guard actually shoots him from the Naval Academy. So I just love that scene. They don't really use that gate as much anymore, but Jack Ryan is an honorable mention.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing, right? So that was, I was there for 4 years. It's my alma mater. That gate, we used to use it all the time. Hey, I'm stumbling in and out on the weekends and stuff like that. It's Gate 3. That's what they call Gate 3. That's where they filmed right there. They actually did film it right there, at least for that part of the movie. We charted our currents of history by looking back at the top 5 Navy moments, which saw the fleet evolve from wooden frigates to nuclear titans. We had some fun debating our picks on the top 5 Navy movies, and of course, the unforgettable top 5 Navy characters that stand the test of time. Whether you agree with our take on Top Gun or you think we missed a key historical battle, we want to hear from you. So go Navy, happy birthday, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Go Navy, beat Army.
This has been a Walk with History production. Talk with History is created and hosted by me, Scott Bennie. Episode researched by Jennifer Bennie. Check out the show notes for links and references mentioned in this episode. Talk with History is supported by our fans at thehistoryroadtrip.com. Our eternal thanks go out to those providing funding to help keep us going. Thank you to Doug McLiberty, Larry Myers, Patrick Bennie, Gail Cooper, Christy Coates, and Calvin Gifford. Make sure you hit that follow button in that podcast player, and we'll talk to you next time.